Hi, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Connect with KB. So glad to have you tuning in as we talk about business, education, leadership, and all the wonderful things that connect us to each other. Joining me today is a guy who proudly represents Mid-Michigan as one of the biggest online poker players and streamers in the U.S., and he really ignited his status when he signed a brand ambassador contract with PokerStars in 2022. I want to welcome to the podcast a great family friend and an honorary son of mine, David Kaye. Dave, so nice to have you on Connect with KB. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having KB. I've really enjoyed watching your podcast, and it's nice to be in the studio and see everything, and now be a guest on the show as well.
You bet. Well, you know, you and I have had a long-time relationship. I mean that sincerely when I say that you are an honorary member of the Belter family and always will be. I'm so proud of you and the work that you're doing. First, I want you to tell me the David Kaye story.
Yeah, so I grew up in Mid-Michigan. Like you said, I went to school with Chris. So basically growing up, basketball and video games were like my two biggest hobbies. So very competitive, like basketball growing up, and definitely kind of like developed like the competitive drive and like work ethic that I would need like later in life to do what I'm doing now. And then after that, graduated from Hazlitt, went to Trine University for 4 years, got my bachelor's degree in business management. After that, kind of just went into corporate world. You know, I worked in insurance for a while. Worked with the data field for about 5 years, about 4 years at a manufacturing company, and 1 year at a medical board. And then eventually, COVID comes around and decide to start streaming poker. And basically my like work life makes like a pretty drastic change after that.
Yeah. Well, you know, you kind of stepped into this whole thing, content creation, Twitch, YouTube. How did all of this come to be? How did you, one, step in to this place of streaming, not just playing professional poker, but all things that really come with sharing the platform?
Yeah, so I've been playing poker for many years. Like I started playing in summer of 2010, and then by the time the COVID lockdowns came around, it was like March of 2020. So about 10 years, like I was just playing recreationally for fun with friends, something on the side, like no desire to ever play professionally. Like I enjoyed the game, but not something I saw myself doing professionally. And then like over the years, I've been watching poker content and consuming it, especially on YouTube. So like there's a lot of vloggers out there that'll produce videos. So I'd watched for a while, and like while I would play on my own, and again, just kind of like a weekend hobby, maybe one day on the week or whatever. And then like the COVID lockdown happens, and the world shuts down and everything changes. You have all this free time. You're like, what do I even do? Like I used to play rec sports like 3 to 4 nights a week. That's done. Seeing friends and stuff, like, not doing that at the moment. So I'm just like, well, I got to fill my time with something. So I started, watching a lot more poker content. Just like, a lot of people, I think I binged YouTube a lot more than I used to. And then I started watching Twitch streams a lot more too. And then like after doing that for a few months, I was kind of like, well, I got a lot of free time. I kind of want a project here during this like shutdown. So I was like, how would I start doing content myself? Mostly just for fun. And then like also I think at the time I kind of saw the way that the world was changing is like work from home is gonna be a lot more of an option. Regulated online poker and online gambling in the US was really picking up. So I thought like career-wise it'd be really kind of fun to like navigate into that world on the business side of it. So I thought like building a Twitch stream could help be something I could put on like my resume as well for like potentially trying to get a marketing job or working in the poker industry on the data side. So it was kind of like it was a mix of like something fun to do, kind of a new project that I hadn't done before, but also in the back of my mind I was like thinking that maybe it could help be something for like a resume builder in the career, like for a future transitioning to.
Well, it's so interesting. I think that COVID changed so many people in regards to how they looked at their careers. I had David Gregory on with me not too long ago, and he left the multi-client lobbying world to become an NFL NIL agent. And he has a company called Bull Rush Sports. And one of his clients, Jake Witt, just got drafted in
That's
the
exciting.
NFL. And so, that was kind of David's comment, too, that he was changing. He always knew he was going to kind of go this way. But because of COVID and the fact that he started to care for his parents and that kind of thing, too, just really kind of speeded up that timeline and changed him. So it'd be really interesting to sometimes really get a gauge as to how many people actually pivoted their careers because of COVID and what all of that meant to them in regards to not wanting to spend their life either in the corporate world or one trying to do something that was a passion of theirs. And that is exactly what happened with you. You are passionate about poker. You obviously have a very analytical mind. You did when you were in the corporate world, and I think that's what you were doing in terms of being a data analyst and doing work there. How did you get into the relationship with PokerStars?
Yeah, so before it started up, I'd been streaming about a little over 2 years, and I've been streaming full time for about a year. So like my first year doing it, for streaming. It was just very much like I said, like I was kind of like doing it for something as a fun project. And then also like trying to build a resume builder. And then about a year into it, I was like, oh, like I'm actually growing. Things are going pretty well. Like, let's take a shot at this full time. So I went full time with it before I even had the sponsorship deal with PokerStars. So I did that for about a year. And then, you know, as time went going on, especially in the 6 months leading up to the partnership with PokerStars, like I'd had a lot of brands reaching out. But they would be like poker clubs or just like sites that I personally just wasn't interested in working with. Like I take a lot of pride in like what companies I work with. And I think it's very important as a content creator to only work with brands that like you really like would advocate for, right? And I've been very specific about like I think in the online poker market in the US, if you have an option to play in the state regulated market, like that should be your option. That's the only option. So PokerStars being, you know, the biggest site in that market, you know, I was like really hoping to get an opportunity with them. And then, you know, like I said, I had a lot of these places reaching out, but not the ones I was interested in. So talking to my girlfriend, Jenna, she's like, why don't you just reach out to them directly, you know? So I did that, you know, I reached out to them and just, you know, said, hey, like, you know, I'm a poker streamer, content creator. If you guys are interested in working together, I'd love to have the opportunity to at least talk. And then, you know, pretty quickly within 24 hours, I get an email saying, oh, like we're aware of your stream. We've been meaning to reach out relatively soon. Let's have a meeting, talk in 48 hours later, just have like a initial conversation. And then, you know, a couple weeks pass by and, you know, get like a verbal offer to officially join as a PokerStars ambassador. So it's a pretty wild month or so there, but definitely like very happy with the outcome from it.
Well, so neat to be able to partner with a company that really matches who you are. Disciplined, principled, dedicated, operating from a sense of core values. And, you know, I thought it was the neatest thing too. And I love the gear that you're wearing today, PokerStars gear. But how fortunate for PokerStars to be able to partner with you and the person that you are. So I think you're right. I think that those two worlds kind of come together and it's right people connecting at the right time. What does, kind of walk me through a little bit about playing poker. For somebody who doesn't really know, what is kind of the first thing that somebody who's just a beginner would want to know?
Yeah, so I think there's just a couple different variations of poker. So the most popular is going to be called No Limit Hold'em or Texas Hold'em, as people have heard of. So it's kind of first figure out what game you're playing. And then within that, there's something called cash games. So basically you'd buy in for a dollar value of chips, $200, $500, $1,000, whatever it is. And then there's tournaments, which is more of like you pay an entry fee up front, and then you play down until there's a winner and you get paid out based on your prize pool. So I think, like, you know, at the end of the day, like, I think if a lot of people have grown up playing card games in their houses, they play different variations of poker, different games of card games. But like the nice thing is, like, especially when you're playing online at PokerStars, like you can start as low as like $2 games, right? Like you can, you know, there's, you know, definitely like a beginner level to kind of like get accustomed with playing. There's even play money available. So like if you don't want to invest any money, you can play for free, play for play chips. So yeah, it's just you know, to start poker, there's not much barrier, but to try to get good at it, it's a lot of hard work for sure. So they always say it's like an easy game, but it's like very hard to master. And I'd say it's very true. It's an easy game. Like the rules are, you know, you can pick up pretty quickly. But as far as like getting good at the game and trying to master it, it's definitely a very difficult process that's always ongoing.
Well, I've had an opportunity to watch you on Twitch, and you are so calm.
Yeah.
And I think that's really one of your greatest assets is that you don't get excited. You just walk through. You talk to people just exactly like how you're talking to me right now. And I think that for people to see you, it's comforting to them to watch you. There's a professionalism that you display, but also you're fun. You can kind of laugh at yourself. I thought it was really interesting that one of the comments that somebody made on your following was, I get eczema watching this video. Brutal. Solid mental, solid player. Thank you for your content. And it just, I thought that made me laugh, really. But, I mean, there was comment after comment on there about you. And you obviously know that your personality works and fits very, very well with this game. How did your previous careers get you here to make you a better poker player?
Yeah, so I think honestly, even before careers, I would say go back to like playing basketball growing up. I think there's even more that correlates from that. So I think when I was younger, like I was very hard on myself. Like it wouldn't be like outwardly expressive, but like, you know, I was very hard on myself. I was my hardest critic. So like I'd have a bad start to the game and it's like, it was over. You know, like mentally, I just could not handle it. Like at a high school level, I was pretty talented. I worked really hard, but like the mental game, like I just did not have. And then now, like you said, years later, like one of the biggest comments I get on my stream all the time is like, wow, like you never get mad or you never get frustrated, or in poker, they call it tilt. And it's like really valuable in poker, right? Like everybody's going to have their A game, but how are you playing when things aren't going well, right? So like everyone's going to go through tough stretches. So like if I can handle those better than my opponents, that's, you know, an advantage for me to have. So I think, you know, looking back to that sense of like, for looking back at basketball, like I think, like I said, I used to be like a weakness of mine probably, but like it's kind of nice to see like over my life, I can get improving things and can become like one of my biggest strengths. And then as far as like work career wise, I think that, you know, working in the data field, like being data driven, like there's definitely, you know, there's database study that you'll do. So you kind of look through stats, seeing on your opponents and like analyzing, okay, so this is where they're supposed to be. If they're supposed to do something 45% of the time, but they're only doing it 35% of the time, well, here's my deviation and my exploit against kind of what they're doing. So it definitely like correlates to with that. So I think like as far as like the mental side of things, definitely from more of like my basketball upbringing and then like getting the work ethic and like really falling in love with the process of doing something. I think a lot of times like in life in general, people, they want the result instantly and instant gratification. Whereas like, it's like you fall in love with the process, which then turns into like the big events or like the big thing. So
yeah, you bet. And as you mature too, because you can see where you win and lose, very much like golf. I mean, it's like course management, you know, it's the same type of philosophy that you have to just keep your head in the game and keep focused. You have a following of 15,000 plus people on Twitch, as well as 10,000 subscribers on YouTube. How does that feel to have that kind of following? Do you do much interacting with these people outside of like poker, or is it just that you communicate online? Have you ever met any of these people?
Yeah, so I've had a chance to meet a few people. So there's different poker events you'll be at. So Firekeepers Casino holds the Mid-States Poker Tour, which is a tournament twice a year. So like a lot of the online community will go there. Also, when I get out to Vegas, I get a chance to meet people too. So yeah, I've met a few people in person. And then as far as like, you know, on a day-to-day basis, there's a lot of people interact in my Twitch chat. You know, I have a lot of regulars, which is really nice and supportive. Also the YouTube, you know, a lot of people leave comments and stuff and just encouragement or, you know, help giving feedback on hands, you know, they might have questions on. Or, you know, we have like a Discord group where people just like talk poker. So it's a lot of that. And like people will send out messages through Twitter, Instagram, but it's really nice because like the poker community is definitely very niche. It's a very niche hobby, right? But the thing is when you take the entire world, it's a lot of people, right? There might not be a lot of people in mid-Michigan that play poker seriously, but when you look across the whole world, it can add up to a very large number. So I think that that's nice too. I think it's like someone that plays poker, like I have very few people that I interact with on a day-to-day basis that even know the rules of poker. But it's nice to know there's others in the world that like have the same passion that I do, and I can interact with them through the, you know, the power of the internet. Well,
you know, the thing is that you've obviously got a very large following, but kind of you're really one of two people signed by PokerStars in the country, I believe. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
That is unbelievable. Is it what you thought it would be like in regards to having this relationship? And what kind of comes next for you?
Yeah, so I think like definitely going in, like there's definitely the aura of like being with PokerStars. Like I think, you know, I can relate back to my very first days of playing in 2010, and I used to watch live tournament coverage of PokerStars. They run the European Poker Tour. And I remember watching, like, you know, and they'd have their sponsored pros, and I was like, wow, like I really look up to that player as like a fan. So it's like weird to now be in a situation where it's like I'm that person to people in a very different capacity than before. So like obviously like mine is more around my content and my stream, whereas like before a lot of their sponsored players would be around like people traveling the live tournament tour. But still like just being a PokerStars ambassador and like thinking back on like the whole journey is like pretty wild. And then, you know, PokerStars has been around in the market for over 20 years and really coming back into the U.S. market at this time. So it's, you know, I definitely had high expectations going to the partnership. Like I said, I was very adamant that like there's very few brands I'd be willing to work with, and PokerStars was at the top of them. And they've still somehow exceeded the expectations. I mean, it's just been, everyone's been so great. Even, you know, like the onboarding process or like the initial thing, I working with Ferg, who's like kind of the main person. And even during that, like it was never like, why do you deserve this? It's more of like, here's what we can do to help partner with you, and here's what we can help you with, which like, I think they'd have been every right to like, why do you deserve this, right? Like, you know, what are you going to bring to us? But it was more of like what we can do for you, which I think says a lot about their character to begin with. Cause like, again, they're the biggest poker brand in the world. So like they could honestly basically have their pick of choose of like who they want to work with. So that, you know, that, and then just the people I work on a daily basis. I have a streaming manager, Louis, who's great. Anytime I have questions, I can reach out to him. I'm always willing to help set up things, and makes my life really easy as a streamer. And I work with Kevin, who's on the US team. Same sort of thing. Like, you know, the thing with PokerStars, everyone I've interacted with like truly loves poker and cares about the game, which is really nice, right? Like, it's not like I'm never in these like conflicting situations. I think, like you talked about earlier, when you get in partnerships, like you want to have common interests, and that's what makes like the best partnerships the best, is where here's what I want to do and here's what you want to do, and we're aligned in those. So I think that, like I said, I had really high expectations going in, but they've still found a way to exceed them too.
Incredible leadership. That's what it is. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about Dom Dom Choma, your good friend, and another Belter honorary son, who was on this podcast with me, I think probably about a year ago. Talk about your relationship with him and how do you get better together?
Yeah, so I think point blank, like if it's not for Dom, there's no way any of this happens. Like it's just really that simple for so many different reasons. So, like we started playing the same home game with our friends, and then we were kind of the only two that took it serious after that to play online at all or play in casinos. So just having like a friend that was really into it that you could talk to. For many years, we were just doing it recreationally. He was like the same thing as me. I don't think either of us really planned on playing full time. So there's about a 10-year stretch where it's literally just like we're recreational players, we have our full-time jobs, but like it made it an enjoyable hobby because it's like something you're doing with your friend. You're not just doing it by yourself. And then more specifically over the last few years, kind of seeing his journey of like going. So he went professional as a poker player in the summer of 2020, I believe. And that was about the time I started streaming, but I didn't go full-time with streaming until September of 2021. So, kind of over that year, I saw the success he was having and like how his hard work like paid off. So I was kind of, it's like when you see somebody that doing something, it kind of gives you the encouragement to kind of take a big risk in a way, or at least what a lot of people would view as a big risk. So even though it's like very different what we do on a daily basis, right? Like he's a professional poker player. He's strictly, trying to be the best player he can be, and that's his sole focus. Whereas mine is, okay, I'm trying to be the best player I can be, but like my content is going to be like the biggest focus. So even though, they're in the poker space, but they're very different, which I think has made it kind of fun too, because we're not really directly competing with each other in a way. So like he plays higher buy-in games than I do. So it's, anytime he does well, it's easy for me to root for him. And then if I'm doing well, it's easy for him to root for me. Whereas if like we were competing in the same highest stakes games, like we'd still root for each other. It'd be kind of weird, right? It'd be much more in that sense. And then, just from like a pure strategy standpoint, like I do spend tons of hours working on my content, and like I won't be putting in the same study hours that like other professionals are. But having Dom being so willing to help out can make the hours really efficient for me. So like not many people have a resource like Dom. And then on top of the fact that he's just like so willing to help, it really means a lot. And like I said, it's just like so many different points where like if it's not for him, like there's no way this happens. So
that's really, really neat. And I see it too. And he talks about you as well and the relationship you have and how supportive you are of him. Tell me a little bit about Dave and Chris and how they feel about this, and about Jenna. You really need so much support from people to keep you going and to ground you a little bit. So just kind of share with the listeners too a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I think, like you said, the people you surround yourself with the most, it's very important to have a support system, especially like I said, so I went full-time in September 2021. I had no partnership, no contract. So what a lot of people would view as crazy, right? Like I just left corporate, stable world to stream poker on the internet without a ambassador contract or anything. But like, deep down, like I really felt like I was convinced it was the best decision for me at the time. Like there was like no question in my mind. I didn't know it would work out like it has, but I felt like, if I looked at the two scenarios of, if it doesn't work out, I just go back to kind of corporate America, or I can transition into like the poker industry, like I talked about earlier, in a different way than streaming, or I give myself a shot at this, and then if it works out, it's a really big positive for me. So I was convinced that this is the right decision, but obviously you never know how other people are going to feel. But I was very fortunate to be in a situation. I kind of talking back to Dom, was very supportive. He understands the industry and kind of could see where things were. And then my parents, like they are very conservative, non-risk takers. So like the idea that their son's going to quit their job in their late 20s to try to stream poker on the internet, I know they were terrified, but at no point did they ever try to talk me out of it, and they were supportive. I know it scared them, but at the end of the day, like they were supportive, and they were very excited when I eventually got the opportunity with PokerStars. And then too with Jenna, like same sort of thing, she's had a lot of success following like a traditional career path. So for her to be so like accepting and willing of me like doing this off the beaten path idea, and again, taking what many people would view as a wild swing, was really helpful. I mean, if you have like a partner, or if you have your family that's like, downing you for what you want to do, it makes things a lot more difficult. So like, at the same time, like I believed in myself, but it's nice to, know that I had people that were supportive, even if, it's harder for them to understand because it's just such a unique thing I was trying to do.
Absolutely. How would somebody watch you?
Yeah, so the main two platforms I use are Twitch and YouTube. So for Twitch is a streaming platform for those that might not be familiar with it. So that's where I do all my live streams. So basically you can watch along with while I'm playing, every hand I'm playing. I'm usually playing multiple tables, but I'll hop around and show like the biggest hands. So a lot of times those streams will be like 6 hours long. Is kind of like the normal stream. So they can interact in chat. It'll be on a 5-minute delay. I can't be showing my whole cards to my opponents potentially. I'm already giving them enough information on the delay, but if they actually knew my cards in time, it would be very difficult to do well. So 5-minute delay, but it's still like, it's very common in poker streaming, and a lot of people have, you can still interact with the streamer and everything. It's just on the 5-minute delay with that. Then also, if you're more into short form content, if you don't have 6 hours to watch poker, I do a lot of YouTube videos as well, like 10 to 15 minutes. Just kind of like breakdowns, 5 videos a week usually. So it's just, my handle's David Kaye Poker. It's my last name spelled out Kaye on both Twitch and YouTube.
David, I am so proud of you. And I just think that it's incredible, the amount of success that you've had. Not that I would have ever not thought you were going to be successful, but to be bold, just like you said, and to step into this world. And I just have to tell you that PokerStars got a first-class guy in you, without question. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks, Kaye. I appreciate having me on, and thanks for everything you've done for me over the past.
You bet, buddy. I want to thank my guest, David Kaye, PokerStars ambassador, online streamer, and professional poker player. I also want to thank my supporting sponsors, Governmental Consultant Services, Downing Industries, AF Group, Public Affairs Associates, Mercantile Bank, and the Leaderboard, Grand Rapids' new premier golf simulator experience. You can listen to all my podcasts at connectwithkb.com. Until we connect again, go live your best life. I'm your host, Kristen Belzer.